There we go. Hi, everyone. Why does it? Oh, hold on. Let me see. I have like a speck of this. Oh, nope. Maybe it's the light. I don't know why it looks, there's like so much. I mean, it's not even that bright today. Let me see if maybe I put some light up here. Whoops. Uh-oh. I totally dropped that. Yep, that's what I did. All right, let's try to see what's going on here. Oh, that's gonna be a mess to pick up. Plant is okay. Plant is okay. That's what matters. Um, but yes, I will have to vacuum that up now. Maybe. You know what? I'm gonna shift in front of the lights because I don't know why. It's giving like a hazy. I don't know if it's just my computer, but it's giving hazy. Here we go. All right, so just in case. So, hello everyone. Welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending where you're tuning in from. Welcome to another plant clinic. Um, I hope you all had a lovely, lovely weekend. For those who celebrate, um, hope you had nice holiday. Let me see here. I wanted to show you this plant I picked up because I don't think I showed you guys last week. Um, but it is a very odd shape, and so I didn't want it to fall right off of my desk. So everything's falling today. Um, but yeah, if folks are not familiar with it, so I gave it a really, really good soak. So you know, it's coming, it's perking back up because I noticed last night I was like, oh no, I think I need to give it when they're smaller like this, you definitely want to stay on top of the watering. Um, but this is a staghorn fern, and I love how they feel. It's very velvety, and these are the ones that you usually see on like wooden plaques, or you see them even on like cork bark and things like that. So right now it looks like there are at least two plants in here, and so I'm not sure. I'm gonna kind of continue growing it in this little nursery pot for now. And as it started already pushing out some new growth, but as it really starts to fill out, then I'll consider I might want to transfer it onto a really cool piece of wood or something, or maybe like some driftwood, wondering like that. Holly. Oh yeah, it might be coming from the window. It's completely the sky is white. And it is right across from me. You can see it in my glasses. Um, but it's rainy today. So yeah, you're right, Holly. That might be it. It's like reflecting a lot of light back. Uh, so yeah, no, it's not nice today out. And very, very, very chilly as well. But yeah, so I'm gonna experiment with this one and see about putting it up. I haven't tried that before. I have purchased a staghorn fern on wood, and it was all right for a while, and then it wasn't. It's like I was doing the routine thing, and I don't know if it was the changing of the seasons. I had bought it like in the spring, and so like spring and summer it was doing great. And then as we went into fall, uh, all of a sudden it just was not. So I'm like, all right, maybe I think, maybe it was just the humidity in our bedroom. I wasn't able to keep it as high as other places in the house. And so, because in our bedroom, I tend to keep a more like succulent species. We do have um, two monsteras cuttings and water in there. And we have like our mottled dragon in there, which is a philodendron. And Brian has a few philodendrons, not philodendrons, anthuriums on his bedside table. But for the most part, in our bedroom, it's mostly succulents. So it's mostly like euphorbia, um, and also succulent type plants because we also have some snake plants in there. And I have like my chryssulas and a lot of my succulent cuttings. And so they don't mind if the humidity, really dips. The philodendrons are pretty resilient in there, and the anthuriums, they're okay where they're located. But I think it just was not the right spot. I should have moved, like from at the end of the summer, I should have moved the staghorn like into the kitchen or into our living room where we keep it very like much more humid. I haven't put on the humidifiers today because it's rainy. So usually, and I usually open the windows so we get a lot of humidity in here. So like right now, it's still kind of low, but I think it's because it's chilly. So it's like 35. So I might have to turn on the humidifiers today because yesterday, no, not yesterday, the day before yesterday, it was like over 60% humidity just with the windows open because it was like pouring rain. Um, and so, yeah, I'm gonna have to supplement that. Oh no, Holly says we're having the same the same weather. Um, Suzanne, I've had red poles of house finch on my feeders this week. Not sure which one it is. Um, I had red poles of house finch on the feeders this week. I mean, if you happen to take any photos of any of the birds that you might see, um, and red poles. I know polecats, right? Is that what you're referring to? I've never heard of red poles. I'm not sure if you're referring to like polecat on your house finch feeders. Um, I'm not sure. Let me know. Oh, there's sparrows with red heads. Oh, okay. I've never heard them call that. Um, I mean, well, house finches, they do get like a very red coloring. There's because there's also purple finches, but house finches too for the spring and like their mating plumage. They get a very like deeper red. Let me actually grab my bird flashcards. Um, Let me see here. Yeah, it was actually like a little over a week ago I pulled these back out because when I got these as my birthday present last year, I was doing these cards almost every day. Basically like up until the summer. So I was I knew all 100, and then about like a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, I pulled them out and I checked, and there's 100 cards in here, and I missed like 12 or 13. Um, I had put them, yeah, I had put them at the top, the ones that I need to practice. But I know that there is house bench in here. I really recommend these cards. They're great. They also have plant ones. I'll grab that one next, but there's also plant ones. Um, Seeing this owl, well, this is a great horned owl, but it's reminding me of I think it was the Eurasian owl that Flacco escaped from the Central Park Zoo. I don't know if anybody saw that on the news. It's been like a year, I think, at this point. He had escaped, and I wanted to see him. We had gone to Central Park a few times and never spotted him. And I was sad to learn that he actually just passed away. Like within the last month. And what they found is that he was consuming rodents like squirrels that may have been poisoned. And he also had contracted what I something I didn't know existed, pigeon herpes. I did not know that was a thing, but apparently, let me see here. And yeah, the So he just started doing very poorly. I'm very sad because he was, in captivity strips. There we go, for so long. So this is the house finch. So the male versus the female. So is this what you were starting to see? Because they do start to get really red in the spring, um, because it's their mating, like they're starting to look for mates during that time. But there's actually sparrows that do have um, a lot of red on them. One that we see a lot here are fox sparrows, like during like migration and stuff. And those have really kind of rufous type of coloring to them. They're very, very pretty. Um, I actually had a really cool encounter. I went on a plant walk in Central Park. This was like 2019, I want to say, because it was before the pandemic. Um, and we were in the Rambles, and there's an area in Central Park in case anybody ever comes to visit, or if you are here in New York City, you don't know about it. There is a part in Central Park, and it's called the Ramble, and they put actual feeders, bird feeders, and they fill them up with seeds. They have peanuts, suet, like everything in there. And bird watchers love to come there, and they set up their tripods with their cameras, and you can see some really, really cool birds there. And one time when I was actually passing through there and I said, "Oh, let me stop and see," and there was like other birders there. We actually saw a fox sparrow that was a piebald fox sparrow. I didn't manage to take a photo, but I think somebody else did, and they may have put it on Twitter I think it's called Manhattan Bird Alert, and they actually have uh like it they have like that red coloring, but then they have big patches of white just throughout their entire body, and it looks super cool. Really, really, really cool. But yeah. Oh, Brian, could you pass me? You see the other Sibley plant one? It's green. Thank you so much. But yeah, I'd never heard them called red poles. But yeah, so those are the birds right now that are popping in my head. Um, that are like sparrow-like, that might have that red coloring to them. But oh gosh, yeah, looking at these, I'm like, I gotta practice my birding identification. I am actually going birding on Wednesday. Um, and so like on like specifically going birding. Um, and so I'm very excited to see because I haven't been to Central Park in a little bit. So I'm excited to see, and I'm meeting some birding friends that I haven't seen in a few years. So that's gonna be fun. And I also recommend if you do want to get into this, there's also these that are also by Sibley. Um, the backyard birding, and these are North American species. So, but these are much smaller. So they're smaller. These are like really big versus this smaller set. And there is some crossover. There is some crossover, but this one has quite a few species that aren't mentioned. And it's also 100. There are like some repeats, but there is also some different ones. So I like that I have both sets. And Sibley also has a tree identification one. Now this one I have not memorized this entire pack yet. So I have to dust it off and start practicing. Um, because yeah, I think I had separated it into what I did know and what I didn't know. Um, but yeah, I think this is also 100. Yeah, it's 100. So, oh, awesome, Suzanne. Yeah, Google redpoll birds. It's in the finch family. I'd never heard them called redpolls. Let me see here. I don't think I've ever heard of this bird. It's it's not in my decks. I'm gonna show everyone. That is so cool. So yes, passerine. So for those, passerine is like songbirds, small birds. Um, that is so cool. These are really pretty. No, I can't say I'm familiar with these. That is very awesome. They are adorable. Reminds me of like the ruby-crowned kinglet. They have that little dot. The same with the golden crowned kinglet. They just have like a looks like they somebody just like dropped a drop of paint on them. Um, oh, Alaska, Eastern Canada, Great Lakes. Oh, they are, yeah, New England. Wow. No, I haven't had a chance to see one of these. Acanthus. That is very cool. Thank you, because I didn't know about this bird, so now this is another bird for me to learn and keep a lookout for because I did not know this. That is very cool. Oh, thank you, Dion.
Oh, you're welcome.
Oh, and Suzanne used to see them a lot when I lived on the lake. Wow, that is so cool. Yeah, I actually I have to I have a copy, it's an ebook copy of a book called oh my gosh. Is it Animals in Winter? Oh, no, Winter World. There we go. And I'm about to get the Summer World uh book. Animals. I think it's called Winter World. I want to say it's called Winter World. Yes. And so, for those of you who might be interested, and so this book, it's absolutely amazing. Um, and it brings in a lot of, whoops, pop up. It brings in a lot of the plants as well. So if you are a nature, kind of like an overall nature lover, and you're interested not only in how like mammals, but insects, birds, basically how do animals survive during the winter. So during this big change of the season where, there's less food, um, it's not only the freezing temperatures, just how do they deal? How do they adapt? And it's so, so cool. There's a bunch of really cool stories, and um, there's even one on I just mentioned the golden crowned kinglet that also apparently they are one of the tiniest birds, and they have to essentially vibrate to stay alive. So they have to take in a lot of calories during the day. So when they're awake, they're basically constantly foraging. So they're collecting seeds, trying to build up that caloric intake so that at night, uh, they basically like shake all night. So they need the fuel in order to do that, and that's how they actually survive all night. Um, it's just amazing. So it might be a book that some of you might be interested in, and I want to get Summer World, which is the opposite. So basically, same author, but just how the the wildlife just you know what happens in the summer, and how do some species where summers get very hot, how do they actually survive those really elevated temperatures? Um, I'm excited to dive into this one because I'm really liking this one. I haven't finished it, uh, but I definitely recommend it. I love it so far, so far. Um, yeah, and oh, speaking of books, I wrote a review about some books that I wanted to show you real quick. Um, oops, let me put these down before I drop them and spill them all over, just the way that my morning is going. I see myself pushing accidentally with my elbow and then cards and doing, and it's not even 52 pickup. Each of those boxes has 100 cards. So 300 card pickup if I were to do that. Um, but let me see here. Yeah, the homegrown herbs. There we go. And so, for those of you that, it's spring now, well, at least in the northern hemisphere. But for those of you that are considering, growing not only like medicinal herbs, but I'm speaking of like even spices, right? Herbs and spices that you use culinarily. You might be interested in some of these books. And so, homegrown herbs, really great. It really covers an extensive range of topics. Such as even like selecting plants as well as garden design. And then also it goes into um, when you want to prepare your herbs and cooking with them. So there's a bunch of recipes, and it's just really cool. And the photos are amazing. There's things like soups and how to make like herbal vinegars, how to make herbal butters. So it's like a really cool way of integrating like new herbs and spices to your diet, and even fun projects. Like there was one where it's about crystallizing flowers. Um, See if I can find it, but yeah, like how to even make like with honey. So essentially, you coat them with honey, and then this think it's this edible flowers. Yeah, here we go. So you can crystallize them with honey, and then you can use them like, well, you can eat them just like that, or you can put them on like cakes or cupcakes, cookies, things that you're making. And yeah, it's using like honey and using like sugar and I haven't tried to do this before, so this is something I'd really like to do. I'm thinking it might make like a really fun workshop to do with kids. So if anybody is interested, this is a really cool book. And when it comes to the actual plants, that's towards the end, but it's a nice chunk. It's a nice chunk. Um, and it does include a nice amount of information about the herbs. So it talks also about like their likes and dislikes. Like for anise hyssop, for instance, it likes to grow in sunny areas, but in mountainous regions, it really prefers lower elevation. So it'll excel in lower elevations. Talks about things like companion planting, how to harvest, um, the blooming traits. So it covers a nice amount, and you get a little bit about each plant. And so this is a fun book. So I was recommending that, and it has some charts in there too, that are really helpful. So definitely, let me see, check that out. I'm trying to see where there we go. So I think it's at the very end are the reference charts. So it includes also like different names. And so what's wonderful is that I have been compiling, um, lists of plants with all of their other, with as many names that I can find. And so I'm going to be getting from this book as well and seeing if I missed any, because this has some amazing things, because it has even some Hebrew names, um, has German names, Swedish, Italian. Yeah. So I'm gonna be pulling some references from that. And then the Self-Sufficient Herbalist, this book. Um, Also, again, it's not just for medicinal herbs, it's also for culinary things. So if you happen to have a garden and you're hoping to grow your own spices, things, that you'll be using at home, and it actually works really well too, just for like self-sufficiency in general. So even if you're just growing like a food forest, vegetables that that you're harvesting and saving, um, this is like an all-in-one kind of book that really it really focuses too on like the environmental benefits and the importance of self-sufficiency, not just like how do you work with the calendar, and to plant and then harvest, or um it's really great, and it divides that kind of thing too, like a calendar for growing and processing, with in coordination with seasons. um so it can work, in different hemispheres, so it doesn't have to be um just the northern hemisphere. But the what I love is just the processing pictures. So when it tells you like how to make your own ointments using herbs, it really breaks it down, section like step by step, and includes photos. So really, really, really good book. I'm really impressed with it. It's a hefty book. But it packs a lot of information. And especially if this is something that you're going to want to do, maybe if you're going to be going into business or anything like that with any plants that you're growing, this is a book that you're going to want to check out, because it does really focus also on like quality control, which I mean, I think everybody honestly should be more read up on. But uh, it really talks about like standardization and things like that if you want to end up scaling it. So really, really, really good there. And then there's just two more to recommend. It was this one, Grow Your Own Herbal Remedies. Similar to the first one, Homegrown Herbs, but this one, it's much so it does it's much more packed with recipes, versus it does of course have sections on um, growing your plants, gardening and foraging as well. But it really, the focus is more so on the actual like processes and the recipes. So this one also, like here, making herbal honeys. So again, step-by-step process, and really, really great photos, breaks it down, also gives notes. So notes on any like potential pitfalls. Um, Also I like her encouraging notes, kind of like trust the process. um, where you're like, oh, I don't know, you're telling me to do this, but really it's not looking like the picture. And she does say like, oh, at first it might look like this, and then give it some time to cool and the color will change. Like, so she's very encouraging. And so I appreciate that. And so if you're more so into actual processing things and making things for yourself or your family, um, this might be a really good book to consider. And it does have a lot of information on a lot of different herbs. The only problem is that um, it's very minimal information. So some of the other books have like a lot more information, like almost like a page worth, or at least half a page worth, um, about the herbs. And these kind of just have little blurbs. But highly, highly recommend. It's still a beautiful book, and the photography is absolutely amazing. And then the last one is the Backyard Herbal Apothecary, and this one is a little smaller, right? But what I like is just how much is covered in this book, even though it's not that big. Um, because it's not only about like a huge amount of like applications of different types of preparations, um, but it also does include a lot of information about the herbs themselves. So for instance, like calendula, if folks know calendula, um, like this as an example, you get like 2 pages. Some it's like 1 page, but you get a lot of information about the plant and then a recipe that you can do with the plant. So I like how this one's structured in comparison to the other books. And so it's like herb, talks about the herb, and then gives a recipe. So I really like that. And then in the beginning, here we go. It touches on some like kind of like some herbal terminology, but it kind of goes a little fast in terms of like here's a little broad overview, and then it dives right into the different plants and recipes. And it, yeah, gorgeous, really nicely laid out, much smaller. So if you're kind of looking more so for like a little reference book, I mean, there's over 40 species in this book, and it's a lot of information packed in there. So it's not as, expansive as some of the other ones, but still really, really good. So just wanted to recommend those. I'll drop their titles in the chat. Um, Let me see here. I have them saved here on a note. So just in case anybody wants to check them out, um, yeah, I really like them. I really like them, and I think definitely it's like the right time to start looking at these if you are growing your plants outside. Um, and especially if you're trying to grow like edibles. So again, it's not just like medicinal herbs, but it's also just things you want to put in your cooking. So, just check them out. All right, Jamie's question. I got a huge pot and I'm going to replant my big ficus tree at the end of the month when my out of town friend comes to help me. Oh yeah, yeah, I think yes, you mentioned that right? Last week, I think so. Wondering, should I put stones or pottery over the holes to prevent soil loss? Good question. Google suggested paper or coffee filters, but this is about a 30-year-old plant, and since I'm almost 77, it will not be transplanted again, and the paper would degrade. Have to have all the materials ready at the end of the month because I only have help for 2 days. Okay. Um, my recommendation would actually be to get terrarium um, filter mesh. Uh, Let me share my screen. I would recommend so terrarium filter mesh. So I know that I got some on Amazon. Terrarium filter mesh. And I do recommend this, folks, if anyone's having issues, like especially if you get one of those pots that has really big draining holes. I mean, sometimes, it's great because there's a lot of air, going under as well. And of course, you want the water to escape, but it's not as it works against, right? Especially if you're adding things like perlite or if you start to add things and then it's just all of it, you're losing all of it. It's basically getting eroded every time. So I would recommend um the mesh. Now, not the metal mesh. Here we go. Substrate barrier. So for instance, so use the ones that are meant for terrarium. So this is safe not only for your plants, right? But also like for pets. So it's just a better material and it's meant to sustain long term. So avoid any metal meshes. But here you can see like it's relatively really cheap and you can get a nice amount. You can also buy them in smaller pieces. And so for instance, this one for $5, and they also come, pre-cut into smaller pieces. So if you wanted to kind of put them in different sides really easily, so you're not having like to work with a big piece and then cutting it to size. You can kind of just put one piece there, one piece there. So like for instance, this one might work really well for you. I'm gonna drop that in the chat. So mesh is great. But again, not the metal mesh, because it sometimes if you look up mesh, like the top suggestions were metal, stainless steel. So I wouldn't recommend that because sometimes it's not really stainless steel. Uh, and there are some plants, for instance, that might be very sensitive, and then over time, the material can, there can be leaching and things like that. So it's just better to get the ones that are either meant for plants or meant for terrariums. It's just safer. And it's going to last a really long time, so you don't have to worry once you have them set up. But yeah, so you can add them, and it'll keep those big chunks of soil, or like if you have perlite in there, from escaping. So really prevents that soil loss. I'm gonna pop that in the chat. Oh, that's a long link. Okay, but you'll see that. Oh, you're very welcome, Jamie. Yeah. So I mean, again, they sell them in rolls, but if you're like, yeah, I don't need like, 4 feet of this, you can you can just buy the ones, and it's really cheap, as you can see. So for $5, and you get these like 5 pieces. So if you don't end up, using like all 5 pieces, you can save one and maybe cut it to size on some smaller pots you might have. But it's, yeah, really inexpensive, really great quality. So I use like terrarium mesh, um, for, gosh, I have them not only for my actual terrariums, but also for some like the bioactive enclosures for my isopods as well. So yeah. Oh, and for those of you in New York City, I don't know how many of you are here in New York City, but I am going to start selling some isopods. So, feel free to reach out if you're interested in having your own isopods. So yeah, my colonies are bunch of them are having babies, and I have like a lot of different types now. So some are still too young to sell, but some are ready to go. So like my dwarf isopods cultures, they're super tiny and they stay super tiny. They're super awesome, super, super, super. I'll just keep saying super because they really are. They're what got me into isopod collecting as an adult. When I was little, of course I loved uh, you know, catching isopods, but I wasn't keeping them as pets. But now, yeah, it was like 2020, I think, 2019 or 2020, I started, getting more into terrariums, and then I had bought my dwarf white, and that, I had a couple left in the container, so I started a little micro colony and they exploded. I seeded another colony and I've given them away. I had, it got crazy there. And so then folks were like, well, why aren't you selling them? And I was like, I don't know. I should, because now I'm having too many and I can't keep them all. So I am gonna start selling some. The same with my dairy cow isopods as well. So if folks have, bioactive terrariums, you're setting up things like that you want to have isopods, let me know, because yeah, I'm selling them. And I have a lot of dairy cows. Dairy cows are probably the most I have. They're a larger isopod, and those, are for like tanks, if you guys have yeah, bioactive tanks, but not they do love their protein, and so you don't want to put them if you have like pets in those tanks, like bioactive enclosures. They're fine with things like crested geckos or like, bearded dragons, like larger reptiles, but I would not recommend them for like small frogs because they might bite them. Not going to eat them necessarily, but they might bite them. So I for us that we don't feel anything, but for a frog whose skin is like super thin, that's a different story. So it can cause them stress. So I don't put them, like I only have orange, I have powder oranges and dwarf whites with my frogs. Um, because they're very soft bodied, they don't bother the frogs, but the dairy cows, they are more robust. They're a little pink. So every isopod is different. So not only are the colors different, but also their behaviors. And it's I think that's what has gotten me addicted. Because yeah, now I'm collecting so many different types of isopods now. But for folks just to see what in the world I'm talking about, um, dairy cow isopod. So yeah, so they are not insects, they are crustaceans. So they are related to crabs and shrimp and lobsters, but they are fully land bound. So they're terrestrial. So they don't live in water like other crustaceans need to at least live like part time in water. Many of them, like some can venture on land, but and now these guys do need moisture, but they don't swim. So they don't. But right now, my culture is kind of looking like this third picture here. It's exploding, and so yeah, I'm gonna start selling them. But these guys work really well in bioactive tanks, or just as pets. They really make a really cool pet. And yeah, so uh, if anyone ever wants any, let me know. Um, questions. Oh, what do you cut the mesh with? Yes, Jamie. It's very thin. You could just use a regular scissor. So no need to, you don't need any specialty scissors or anything like that. It's super soft. It's like a very, very thin plastic. So you can totally just use regular um scissors. Barbara, let me see. Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, about the book and the mesh. Um, yes, small rocks and gravel. Yes, it works really well. I've also used mesh for uh my the word is escaping for the pond. There we go. So um for some of my propagations that I use pond, sometimes like the pond can be super tiny, and so when you water, a bunch of it comes out from the drainage holes, and pond is expensive. So yes, I started putting mesh on the bottom so that it doesn't escape because I was like, I am losing so much when I water these propagations that I have. So, yeah, because some of them I use a double, little, hold on, let me see. I dropped so much pond just now when I was trying to fix the light here. I even dropped some pond on the poor plant. I'm so sorry, guys. Gotta vacuum this up after after that. But for some of my propagations, I do a double cup method. So the first cup has like this one doesn't have mesh because it's tiny and I'm using this, but they're very tiny holes, but there's holes like on the bottom, on the sides that I made. And then what I do is I water them and I let this little section fill up like a little reservoir and then they stay like this. So I have bigger versions of that scattered throughout the house. And I use mesh on the ones that are like bigger with bigger holes because I don't want to lose the pond. Um, but yes. And oh yes, and cut styrofoam also works, and it's good to use. Yeah, the trash and eventually floats on top. Yes, I have seen folks use styrofoam as filler in their pots. Um, I also have seen people use even like plastic, so things like water bottles and things like that. Um, and I mean, I think that's great for raised beds, for like flowers, like ornamental plants. But I just personally wouldn't recommend it if you're growing stuff for consumption, like tomatoes or things like that. I would probably steer away uh, from putting plastic and stuff like that, especially like any petroleum-based products, anything like that, in your soil, because over time, it's not necessarily that it takes. I think it takes like thousands of years for plastic to really actually like degrade. It will break off into tinier pieces, and that's why we have microplastics. Brian and I were actually watching a YouTube video. I'll share the link. It's really wonderful. We didn't finish watching it, but it's about people around the world that are doing really amazing work uh, to deal with different problems that humanity has. And one was microplastics, and that microplastics are found in everything, not only in our sand, but they're being found in like in the rain, in our food, in fish. It's literally there's microplastics everywhere. We're probably, we're chock full of microplastics at this point. And there are people that are doing things like to collect plastic and make bricks and things like that. Um, but I did not. It was scary to to watch. Um, yeah, so I definitely wouldn't recommend to put it with anything that you are planning to eat. If possible, you can avoid that. And yes, you could totally use coffee filters. And coffee filters will degrade over time. So if you don't mind that, so I have, there are folks too that I've seen even use. I mean, I've done it myself with like cardboard boxes, where if you're trying to get rid of like certain weeds or create a raised bed, and let's say it's like on a section full of like knotweed. I don't know if anyone here has ever had to contend with Japanese knotweed, but it's originally from Japan. Um, and once it takes hold in your yard, uh, it's yeah, it's very, very difficult to get rid of, and you can cut it, and it's a nightmare. It keeps coming up. So folks use like newspaper, or you might want to put even like cardboard. Um, and one thing is I saw like maybe like 2 years ago, there was a paper where what they were doing is they were putting mesh, which we were talking about. That's why I'm like it full circle here. But they were putting mesh, but it was slightly bigger holes. And so what would happen is that the plants would start to come up, so you'd cut them, and the root stock is still alive, so it's going to keep coming back. So what it did is it would go through the mesh, and once it starts getting thicker and growing, it would girdle itself. So the mesh wasn't expanding. So as the plant would grow, it would essentially strangle itself. And yeah, then the plant couldn't make food, right? Couldn't photosynthesize because the whole top part was dead. And eventually, it could take a couple years, but then the rootstock will eventually die because it can't, it can only live so long off of its reserves. So it very cool, like, all the ingenuity to try to get rid of these, sometimes these weeds that come up and are causing issues in our yard. I know that right now, if you have bamboo in your yard, as well as Japanese knotweed, it's bringing your real estate appraisals. It actually brings your property value down because it's so hard to get rid of. So yeah, just food for thought. But yes, thank you, Barbara. Yeah, absolutely. Coffee filters, definitely. Yeah, and using things like styrofoam. Yes, you can totally use things like that in when you're trying to fill pots, especially to make up for a little bit of room. But yeah, let me see. Jen Oh, Jen, I have a succulent that really needs transplanting, but it's very delicate. What's the best way to transplant? I think it's a jade. Ooh, okay. Um, all right. So if it's super, super delicate, a couple things you want to keep in mind with even this works with succulents. And it holds true for other types of plants too. Um, but so if in preparation, so you're gonna have like a timeline of when you're gonna be transplanting it so that you can water it a few days before. Now, for foliage plants like, philodendrons or like your peace lilies or things like that, you want to do it about like 2 days before you actually do the repot because it makes it a little bit easier for you to do the transplant. For succulents, though, I would say just a few more days before that. So maybe like five, 5 or 4 days. So just a little bit extra. So it's not like sopping wet when you do the transfer. But it has had some time to soak up that water, and it's not bone dry when you transplant it. Um, and yeah, do you have it in what kind of pot do you currently have it in? Is it in a nursery pot, like the plastic pots, or is it in a terracotta pot? Um, so let me know, because yeah, oh, it's in a ceramic pot. Okay. And so are you going to be putting it in a slightly larger, like the same situation, a slightly large ceramic pot? Okay, cool. Um, Great. So what I would say is you're going to want to use some type of tool to so it's hard with ceramic. So if it was plastic, it makes it a little bit easier. But with ceramic, you can't squeeze. You can't squeeze the sides. So what you're going to want to do is use some type of tool. Uh, darn it, yes. Some type of tool like a plastic knife. That works really well. Plastic knife works really well. If so, it's something kind of flat that you can wedge between the side of the pot and the soil. So and it works well if it's bendy. So I like to use plastic knives. So I have some plastic knives that I keep with my planting tools because they really work really well. And they work really well with terracotta. And so I like to use that. So essentially you can try like, all right, giving like a little pat to kind of try to see if you can separate some of that soil from the sides of the pot. And then you can take that flat plastic knife, and it's bendy, so it works really well. And then, don't stab, but it's more like slip it in and kind of work around just to kind of try to pry it from the sides, but without like going so forcefully that you might cut roots or anything like that. So as you're doing that, you can also tilt the pot slightly away so that you're really forcing that soil to separate from the side. Then once that happens, you can use something like again, plastic fork. I have not plastic fork, plastic spoon. I have a bunch of them. I have a bunch of like plastic utensils in my planting tools. You can use that to kind of scoop a little bit of that soil away, so that you can really kind of get that root ball out kind of in one piece, especially when the plants are very delicate and you're trying not to, cause a lot of mayhem. That'll work. And if it's nice and it had soaked, but it's not sopping wet, it should come out a nice kind of fully formed kind of piece. And so that should make it a little bit easier. Um, and I would recommend definitely like, hold the base as when you are ready to pull the plant out, you hold it at the very base, and kind of pull very slightly upwards and see if it goes. If not, that means you need to work a little bit more on the sides. Because if you did get everything out from around the sides, it should basically come out and like pluck itself out. And then yeah. And then you can, reuse some of that soil as well as, of course, replenishing some fresh soil in there. So you can put a little bit in the pot, kind of set that in there to measure. You can loosen up the root ball a little bit, just to, show the roots that they have space. But just the reason too why it's always recommended to water your plants a few days before is this process is very traumatic to the root hairs, also to the roots in general, but specifically to root hairs. So you have your root, and I mean, there's so many different types of roots, but we can just think of it like, right, there's like the primary roots, and then those break off into other sections, and then those break off into other sections. Um, and so the root the root hairs that are really like on these little thin tendrils, and you can see they're fuzzy. Uh, that is what's really soaking up the water. So it's not like the big chunky roots that are close to the top. Uh, it's really the other ones that are doing the work. It's the finer ones with those root hairs. And so they, you touching them, they can break off, they can get damaged. Um, and it takes them a little bit of time to kind of restabilize and kind of reset themselves up. So yeah, and then during that process, it causes a lot of trauma to those root hairs because they're kind of wedged in their space, and so by moving them, it can cause some damage. And so when you have to kind of also kind of massage your root ball, in hopes of kind of getting some of that loose, it's inevitable. There's going to be a little bit of trauma. But if you had watered the plant before, it had time to soak up some water, but kind of gives it a little bit of that, like, okay, well, it has some time to recover, because you're not going to want to water it, specifically for succulents. You're not going to want to water it right after you pot it. So you're going to want to wait at least a week, at least a week. It's usually recommended even like up to 10 days, before you water your plant again. So that's another reason, you water before, because if not, you're not watering your plant for a while, right? Like, let's say it's been 2 weeks, you didn't water it, you repot it, and then, oh, I can't water it right now. I gotta wait 10 days, and then it's 3 weeks, 3, 4 weeks at that point that you haven't watered your plant. So yeah, so just make sure you water it a few days before. I would say like 4 days is cutting it close. Um, and then wait to water it, uh, after you transplant it. So it should have enough moisture in there that it's going to be fine for that time. Um, and yeah, and then just give it time to settle. So, again, that trauma to the roots, it takes it a little bit. So sometimes it's like it's a very precarious time because you're kind of watching, like, is it okay? Is it going to be okay? But it should be fine if you kind of take those measures to make that transplant as seamless as possible. I have seen some crazy transplants. I've seen people on YouTube. Um, and I always wonder, I'm like, was the plant okay after that? Sometimes some plants are super resilient, like snake plants. I saw a video where someone was separating snake plants, and it was like a big bunch of like, it had babies, so there's like a bunch, and they basically took like a knife, like a steak knife, like it was like not even a steak knife, a butcher knife, there you go, a butcher knife, and it was like a legitimate kitchen knife, and they were just like going and just cutting the roots and like the rhizomes and separating them because they were potting them up into separate pots, and both Brian and I were just like looking horrified because we were like, oh my gosh. But I mean, snake plants, yeah, I feel like they might have been fine. Other plants that might be a little bit too traumatic, and they don't acclimate well. And some examples of plants that do have a tendency to go into, I mean, shock can happen to any plant, but some that really have a tendency to become shocked after transplanting, just off the top of my head, ficus. So, that's common, but you give them a moment to come back. So that, like fiddle leaf figs, and Jamie, don't worry. I know yours is a ficus, but we mentioned that when we were talking that you might have some leaves, some leaves drop off. You might have some drop off. That's completely normal. So, no need to panic. It was just a couple leaves or anything like that. Um, but yeah, so you want to, keep that in mind that it can happen, and you want to give your plants a moment to rebound. And another one, peace lilies, so spathiphyllum. So yeah, they they will definitely go. They have a tendency to go into shock. So yeah, peace lilies. Um, I've had issues previously with begonias. Not the cane begonias, like the thicker ones, but smaller begonias. I had transplanted a one, it was a Amphioxus, I think is the scientific name, Amphioxus. I had done a transplant because it was well overgrown. It had the roots were coming out of little nursery pot. I was like, all right, I have no choice. I kind of have to do this. And I transplanted it, and that didn't go well. So I lost my Amphioxus. Um, and I'm trying to think off like personally. Um, yeah. I think I had previously a small Monstera as well. But I think my problem with that is that I had watered it. I hadn't watered it, I should say. I hadn't watered it. And then once I put it into the new pot, I watered it. And that was just a recipe for root rot. This was a couple years ago before I knew how to how to properly do that. But yeah, I killed that. That was like I think it was like my second, yeah, it was like one of my first monsteras. I think it was like our second monstera. So that can happen. And so just always watch out, like especially after a transplant. You just want to also make sure, oh, I should say that. Just last notes on things to keep in mind of after transplantation. You don't want to water the plant the same way you were watering it right before you transplanted it. So again, those roots are still trying to acclimate themselves, so they're not working at full capacity. So I wouldn't recommend, for instance, bottom watering right after a transplant. So I would say, like for succulents, you want to wait and give it a little bit of water, but I would say kind of a top water that you're going around the perimeter of the pot, but not actually like a full soak. Um, I wouldn't recommend a full soak. And yeah, even for foliage plants, I would say like, maybe give about half or maybe even like two-thirds of what you usually would give, just not a full soak. Um, at least not like towards the base, if because the roots, especially if you're putting it into a new pot, they're still more shallow, right? So here's your pot. I'm gonna use my Duncan. Um, so let's say your pot was this big and you had gotten, you shouldn't have this big of a jump, but for the sake of the example, let's say, your pot was this big and you put it into a pot this big. Remember that when you put your pot, it's only coming up to here. The roots are only coming up to here. So one, if you only bottom water that new transplant, those roots probably have not made that way to the bottom of that pot yet. They're just kind of at first they're not even growing. It's kind of just like, okay, I'm in a new thing, and they kind of slowly they first start to take up water again, and then they start to push out growth, and they'll start to push out new roots, and the tendrils will go further down into the soil. But at first, they're not doing that. So if you're only bottom watering, you might make the mistake where maybe you're only bottom watering up to here, and you're not even really getting to that root ball. That's one issue. Also, if you are bottom watering and let's say you let the whole thing soak, it's only really collecting water from that section. Now you have all this extra wet substrate that doesn't have active roots in it, and that's just sitting there wet. And so that's going to take much longer to dry out in comparison to the ones that are one closer to the surface, but also where the root activity is. And so now you just have a big bunch of mud, and this can then cause lower oxygen. This can cause die-off. So there can be bacterial growth, fungal growth. It can just end up being a recipe for root rot. So yeah, so that's why I wouldn't recommend bottom watering right after a transplant. You want to wait till, it's been a couple weeks. So you're going to kind of top water your plants and go around the perimeter. So don't just water it like on one section. You want to evenly distribute that water so that all the roots can get wet and they have that chance also, maybe to go in different directions as well, because there's going to be moisture at different points. So the roots just naturally move outward. So yeah, just a side note. And again, do not put a little plant that's like, this big into a pot this big. That's why you want to kind of size up a little bit. So it's usually recommended 2, 3 inches higher, 2, 3 inches wider. Um, you know, I guess at the most I would say 5 inches, but that's maybe for like a bigger plant. I would be a little worried for a smaller plant to have that big of a jump. I would say it's safer to do 2 to 3 inches in both directions, height and width. But yeah, Griselda, oh, repotted my burl marks and most of the leaves yellowed. Yes. Yep. Um, that's actually another one. Yes, burl marks. I think it was Brian's variegated burl marks. And I think he separated them. I might be mistaken. I'll ask him. But I think there was like two in the pot. And yeah, it came back. But yeah, at first the transplant, no, it did not like it. It did not like that. Jamie, it's like living on the forest floor. Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And Barbara, yes, me too. I call that killing it with kindness, the watering, because the top was very dry. Yes. Yeah. Um, oh, Holly, you are stating lessons that I've done and experienced loss because I did not know what I was doing. Yes. And I again, it's yeah, it's lessons that you end up learning. That's why I try to preemptively, like I go, oh yeah, you guys should know this, because I learned the hard way. I've learned, yes, through killing. I've killed a lot of plants. So yes, I grew up around plants, sure. I've learned about plants and their ecology and growing plants, agriculture, growing them outside since I was very young. Uh, but every step is a learning experience. And, with house plants as well, especially the wider range of house plants that we now have access to. So there are species from all over the world, all different types of climate. And sometimes, even though it's really pretty, your home might not be the best situation for it. Now, if you really want this plant and you're like, you know what, I'm gonna make those conditions. And so you maybe get like a plant cabinet and you set it up with the right lighting, the right humidity, the right temperature. You got your fans, you got your heaters, you got your humidifiers, you know, then that's different. But some plants actually, you need to go that far to keep them alive, versus some common house plants. And yeah, it's definitely through accidentally killing a lot of plants that you start to learn, okay, where did I go wrong? What did I do? What was different from when I repotted this other similar plant, maybe, right? So comparing notes. And then it's also, considering the types of plants. So like I said, with succulents, it's slightly different in your methodology for transplanting versus like a foliage plant. So with foliage plants, yeah, you want to water them before. A lot of people water new transplants like right away. And so what I tend to do is I don't give them a full soak. So with foliage plants, I'm talking like philodendrons, anthuriums, plants like that. When I do, unlike succulents, that I let them just dry for at least a week before I even think about giving them water after I transplanted them. Uh, or like let's say like a burro marx, for instance, a philodendron burro marx. I had watered it before. I'm putting it into a new thing. I might use a squeeze bottle and kind of do a little spritz along the perimeter just so it's if my mixture is bone dry. So if I'm using a mix, let's say that is it's just completely dry. Now you can get mixes. So let's say like a peat and um, fir bark that's like shredded. You might get those types of mixtures that you're like, oh, I'm going to use that for this transplant. And those already are moistened. So they're very like rich and they hold moisture really well. So even when you're touching a bag that's like sealed, it feels wet. And so if you're doing that, I would not water your plant because there's already moisture in there. And I, I wouldn't want to add, my plant was already watered. It already has, wet soil or wet substrate mix that I'm transplanting, into its new vessel. And then I'm, let's say, backfilling with moist material. So I would avoid even spritzing. But if it's dry material, so let's say I'm doing like my Monstera and I'm transplanting it so the base is still kind of soaked. And then I'm putting things like bark and perlite and maybe like a succulent mix to kind of give it some more aeration. I just might take my squirt bottle. So just like I'll grab one just so that folks know what in the world I'm talking about. I have them in different sizes. I'll bring both sizes just to show what in the world I'm using. Um, so there's this little one that I use with like my propagation, and then these are the bigger size ones. I think they actually come bigger than this, but then I use this and I give it a little spritz along the edges, just a little bit, just to maybe soak like the first inch or 2 inches of the substrate but not where I'm like fully soaking it. So again, you just don't want to add so much moisture when your plant is at a time in this chapter of of transplantation where it's not going to actively be what is called imbibing water. So it's not actively, it's just kind of like what just happened. Uh, we're anthropomorphizing here, of course, but yeah. So it's yeah, it's kind of it's not working at capacity. It's also not photosynthesizing at capacity as well. So, um, after transplantation, another thing to consider, you might want to pull the plant slightly away if you had it in a really bright situation. Um, Slightly away. So I'm not saying like completely remove it from light. You don't want to do that, but maybe pull it a little closer, maybe slightly away from the window than you had it. And this could be because also it's not soaking up as much water. And so what happens is that it might try to photosynthesize, um, and it's not taking up enough water. So you might start to see crisping. So it might actually it's almost like it's getting a little too dehydrated, and it's more so for these plants that like a succulent where you're not giving it water for a little bit of time after the transplantation process. Now if this is something like a monstera or something, and again it has that moisture in there, once that's dry you can go ahead and water it. So especially if you have like a high light situation and it soaked it up, it soaked it up. It's like a week after you transplanted. It feels great. You're like, all right, yep, that's dry, you can go ahead and water it. But just for succulents, I would just, give it a little bit, give it a little bit. You might see a little bit of wrinkling, but not really, not that much, especially not with the jade. Especially just a couple days, if you had watered it and it's been just, like a week, it should be perfectly fine because jades, you can even go like 2 weeks without watering jades. So I wouldn't worry about jade. But for things that are slightly more thin, like let's say like an elephant bush, what is that? Portulacaria, elephant bush, you might see a little bit of wrinklage. Uh, yeah, such a weird word, wrinklage. But yes. Um, yes. Holly says, I need to play this talk over and over again. It's easy to forget these steps. If I could make a chart to hang on the wall, common houseplant mistakes. Yeah, hell yeah. Hey, yeah, absolutely. Like, doing those types of things. Yeah, making a chart. Um, I'm happy to make something. So I'll work on that if you'd like. Some common house plant things. I definitely want to throw myself back. I really haven't touched it in a really long time. My house plant book that I was working on, I probably haven't even like opened that file in months. Um, so that's something I'm hoping to get back off the ground and get it going. But yeah, like, creating those resources, like, yeah, this is what I've learned. And again, a lot of these things too, it could be very different depending on where you're living, right? So a plant in my situation here in New York City, uh, yeah, it's house plant advice, so it's not always universal because there's so many caveats, right? It's always like, well, the location of the plant, the type of plant, the type of substrate you have with your plant. It's also the type of pot that you have. So for instance, like the ceramic pot, that's going to hold moisture a lot longer. A lot longer than let's say a terracotta pot. So there's just so many things in play, and so you really it's a like a lifelong experiment is house plant keeping, um, because you can literally have the same two plants. You can have two jade plants, one in your kitchen and one you keep in your bedroom, and you water them at the same time, and it's a different situation. It's like a whole different little world for that plant. And you might just notice like maybe one needs more water than the other because maybe the lighting is different. Um, yeah, it's super interesting. And I think that's what really also attracts me. Not only weird plants, I just like plants in general, but I think it's also the nuances, right? It's like how different it can be, and you're kind of forced to pay attention, right? You're kind of forced to stop what you're doing, stop everything, and just, okay, what does my plant need right now? I has my attention, and what can I do for it? How can I help it along? And I really like that. It just forces you to stop, slow down, think through those steps. um, and yeah, and then get creative, right? Because that's experimentation, creative, creativity. But but yeah, Holly, that makes me really want to, make some more like resources like that. Yeah, make charts, things like that. And Jen, you're completely right. The hard way is always memorable. Yes, exactly. Exactly. Um, Holly. Oh, and I'm afraid to get live predators because I might accidentally kill them. Um, yes. Well, you don't have to worry too much. A lot of live predators, maybe not ladybugs, because yeah, ladybugs can fly around your house. But certain things like if you ever get predatory mites or different types of I think there are also mites. But things like um, oh no, no, yeah, like larva, like lacewing larvae, because there's a lot of different predatory mites. But also things like lacewing larvae and they'll stay on the plant. Now, lacewings will eventually develop wings and will fly away. But the the larva and mites might just be the best if you're really worried about that, because they will live on your plant. So they're not gonna like leave the pot. They're not gonna fly away. So if you ever do want to try predatory insects to battle things like spider mites or mealy bugs or scale even, predatory mites might be the best thing. Um, yeah, just to yeah. And yeah, and it says, I may remember it was hard, but not necessarily the right way to do the right routine correctly. Yes, yes, exactly. And that, I mean, again, that's happened to me. Um, it looks like it's you'll do something right, especially when you're experimenting, right? You'll do it just right. Like that's why I started writing down my mixes, my percentages of when I do my mixes, because I didn't before. I would kind of see what plants I was, replanting, repotting that day. And I'd go, okay, I'm going to be repotting some euphorbia. So I'm going to do a mix where, there's a big chunk, maybe half of it is succulent soil, but then I'm going to do, 1/4 is like extra perlite, and then the other quarter is just a mix. So of things like, a handful of worm castings and like 2 handfuls of leca, and I'm gonna throw some crushed, what is it called? It's grit, but oh, it's granite. I think it's granite. So I'll throw that in there, and that kind of composes that 1/4. Um, and then I'll make that mix, and then my euphorbias are doing great. And then what was happening is I wasn't really thinking about how much I was using. So then I'd go do another batch maybe a few weeks later, and I'd go, "What was the mix? I think I did this, but I was kind of doing it more on feeling, right? It's like okay, I think this would work really well." And I think it also brings you back to almost like childhood, and right, you're just like, oh, like you're like throwing ingredients together. And I wasn't like writing them down, and so then I started having to think like, okay, like let's think percentages. So I had to start doing that, um because yeah, it was because yes, you do it and it's hard, right? And then you're like, okay, that was correct, that was great, that worked, what did I do? And so yeah, so I would recommend, having like a plant journal is great. So if that's something that's interesting to you, what I tend to do is I use voice notes, not voice notes, notes on my iPhone, and I dictate it. So because it lets you do voice to text. So I'll open up my notes app, and I have like an ongoing ongoing note, I should say, where I say things about my plants. So even just reminders to myself. So for instance, we don't water all our plants on the same day. So I water sections, right? And so, for instance, like I'll water I'm watering like the plants in the kitchen, but let's say there's like 2 plants that I can't water with everybody else because they need less water. So I will make a note, and I'd go, you know, um, March 31st, I watered all plants in kitchen except for the let's say the Dischidia and the Florida Beauty, let's say. Those are ones that I water differently. The Florida Beauty, she kind of lets me know, right, when she's when she's thirsty. And the Dischidia is a hanging plant that I have in a little net. It's like a netted pot that's only sphagnum, and so that one, I literally just look, I see it's dry, I soak it, and then I hang it back up again. So it's just hanging off of a cabinet. So it gets watered on a different schedule. But I won't remember these things if I don't keep a note of it. And then that also keeps me from messing up. because let's say I watered them and then 2 weeks later I'm going, did I water them? I don't remember. I don't think I watered them. And then let's say I watered them again and now I gave them too much water. So it's just like things like that. So keeping like a little note or even a plant journal where you write down whenever you water a plant or, oh, I treated my plant, today with the date, so that you just know, okay, so when you open that notebook again and you see the date, you're like, oh, okay, I have to keep this plan, let's say for 6 weeks. And so you can just verify that you did it. And yeah, so, that it works. It works. You have to just take a second to like write it down or speak it into a note, something like that. But yeah, oh yes, and it's fine. I know you've had some, yes, and I've had, yeah, I think also my health um has been kind of crazy in the last year. So yeah, I'm hoping to take control back. Um and yeah, and throw myself into that. Um Gabby, I had an outdoor and indoor rosemary. The outdoor was really thriving last summer until all the rain drowned it. My indoor rosemary is hardly growing. It's healthy but not growing. Any advice? Yeah. Um, so rosemary, like other plants that are in the mint family, because they're in the mint family. So rosemary, yeah, while they like well draining soil and they love to get rain, but as long as it drains out and it's not too much rain. But it could honestly be lighting. So it could come down to lighting. Rosemary definitely likes high light situations. So I would say if you have it by a window, try to see what kind of exposure it is. So it might just need a little bit more light. Another option would be to supplement the light, like with a grow light. Grow lights have become so inexpensive. I bought just an extra light because I'll show you up here. So I have some plants up on these shelves here, and you can see the light is on. So I had to, they were getting light from the window during the summer, right? But then during the winter, this window was not giving enough light for them. So it was a 2 pack, and I think it was like $13 or something like that, and it was two. Um, and I was able to have one like in the cabinet somewhere in case I need it. And then this one I was able to have, and like a claw. So I just clip it uh to the little shelf, and it's like an LED. It doesn't take up a lot of electricity, but it does the trick. So the plant I actually showed you guys, I bought I think 3 weekends ago when I went to the orchid show at the New York Botanical Garden, and I found one of my wish list plants, which was called a bundle of sticks. That is the common name. Um, and it was like, I had it, it was bone dry. I gave it a really good water, and I set it up under the grow light. And look at this. So far, it has all this new growth. So it's probably, let me see, all of this light green. Do you see all the light green? So these are the older, oh, here, it has growth as well. Here we go. So it's like a darker green, and then the light green is all the new growth. Look at all this new growth. It had only like one or two spikes of new growth when I got it, and it just like exploded. And so like even here where this one died off this tip, and the node already produced a new tendril here, and it exploded. So it's all giving new growth. Like I think almost every tip is light green. So yeah, it's like really great. I'm really happy with it, and it seems to be really happy with that grow light. So um because there was only two when I was there, and I was sitting there kind of choosing, and one had a lot of sections that were had died off, they had shriveled off. So I picked this one because it had like two growth points, and it didn't look as sad as the other one. But it definitely did not have all of this new growth. So it really seems happy. And it's growing upwards, if you can see, it's growing upwards. So I think it's definitely the lighting situation. Um, yeah. So yeah, so they're really cool, and really happy with it. So I want to I should probably take a picture and then see the process, see how it does, because it's definitely, exploding. And this is my first time keeping this type of plant, so I had never kept it before. I just wanted it because it looks really odd. So it literally, it's a bundle of sticks. So it's very bumpy. I don't know if the camera will pick that up, but it's very bumpy. It's just these vines, literally. It's just a cluster of vines with bumps on them. And I think it looks really cool. I think it looks really cool. So so yeah, I like these types of plants. Ah, thank you, Priscilla. Thank you. That's great, Gabby. So Gabby says, I make this very class my weekly time to water my plants and I get tons of light. That is wonderful. Yes. Yeah, and yeah, I mean, if it's really not, growing your rosemary, my first thing is light. Is definitely light. But if um if you're like, nope, I have a great lighting situation, definitely don't think it's an issue with light. Um, I mean, you could try potentially, especially if it's spring for you now, to try to maybe add something like worm castings. Um, whoop, something fell. Oh, there we go. Hold on. To bring down any other plant. Here we go. Crisis averted. Oh, okay. Uh, yeah, yes. So far, so good. Um, but yeah, you could try worm castings. Now, slow release fertilizer, if you do have that or you ever get some, you really want to don't be too generous with it. So you want to, like, literally a pinch. And yeah, as the days are getting longer, it should perk up and you should start to see some new growth. So giving it a little bit now that you're going to be getting more light, even more light, because we're starting to get, longer days. And the intensity of light is also it's increasing steadily. So yeah, I mean, you should start to see some growth, especially if you give it a little bit of supplementation, just to kind of give it a little kickstart. Um, but yeah, I mean, I would really say that would probably be like my first two go-tos is like increasing light, which is also happening naturally. So, but then also giving it a little bit of supplementation. Yeah, thanks, Jen. And oh, thank you, Diana. Yeah, they're doing okay. It's been a rough last couple weeks, so I've had a couple of little cuttings that didn't make it. So I'm actually thinking about going on eBay and ordering another batch of cuttings, of random cuttings. I really like those surprise boxes, and I think it's the best time to do it because it's springtime. So if you ever go on eBay, just so everyone knows, if you haven't been here for one of my like unboxings of those mystery boxes, you go and you find a seller that's doing like a mixed lot of succulent cuttings. That's usually like the titles you'll see. And it can be different. So I might order, I saw one that I liked that's only chryssulas. So I collect chryssulas and I'm curious. So chryssulas like jade falls under there, like the Buddhist temple. Um, there's a lot of different types of cuttings like that. And so some, let's say, will give you like 15 different types of chryssulas with shipping included for 15 bucks, let's say. I have done some that were like 7.99 for 10 random cuttings of succulent. They will say succulent. So you might get like a string of pearls and a haworthia and a crassula and like a cactus, an echeveria, things like that, aeoniums. So they'll like really mix it up. So you get so many different ones, but they are cuttings. So they are all for you to start from scratch. And so they just give you a bunch of cuttings and then you propagate them yourself. And then once they're ready, you put them in their pots. And now, you have a bunch of succulents. And so I need to replenish. I have like these two empty terracottas here. On this side, there's a couple of these little propagations that I had in pond that I wasn't paying enough attention to them. And so they didn't do very well. So I'm like, all right, you know, spring, I'll try again. And it's very inexpensive. So if it's something that you want to do, this spring or even in the summer, it's a really fun thing. So it's like less than 20 bucks, and it's fun because you don't know what you're gonna get. So sometimes they do include a photo, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's exactly what you're getting. But yeah, I love that. So yeah, I might order some more and I'll unbox it. I'll purposely with everyone. So once I get it, I'll save it. Because they're usually fine in the box for a few days, so I don't have to worry about it. Um, oh, Priscilla, I want to start growing things like herbs or vegetables, two or three on my fire escape. A quick suggestion on seeds and soil. The space is small. Yeah. Um, so in terms of with your fire escapes, you're gonna want to make sure that you're using you can use those especially if you're limited on space, you can get those long flower pots. Just make sure it has holes so that water can escape, or it's gonna just fill up with water every time it rains. Um, so sometimes if you buy one, you might end up having to drill holes on the bottom. And even if it does have holes, sometimes they have like one hole on each corner, and that's just not enough. Go ahead and drill holes, so a couple of holes so that they're kind of evenly distributed. So there's a chance for not fully riddled in holes, but maybe if you have four holes, maybe add like four more, kind of like in a diamond shape or so, just to kind of give it a little bit more. Um, and what's great is you can grow a lot in those kind of long flower pots. In terms of a soil mix, so it depends on what you're trying to grow. If you're trying to grow something like tomatoes, let's say, so, or something like that, um, they like to stay like a little moist a little longer. And so while you do want a well draining mix, they do like it to stay a little bit more wet. But if you're doing something like, let's say, mints or things like that, um, they don't want to be soaking wet all the time. So you might end up like on really rainy days, it might be something that you want to bring in. So that's also something to consider. Or if you are able to put something over it to kind of keep the rain from falling on it if it's going to be raining a lot. So just to keep that in mind because then you might get too much water. But in terms of seeds, gosh, there are so many different places. There are um you can even things like low places like Lowe's, Home Depot. If you're looking for like really good quality like organic seeds, things like that, there are like Harris's Seeds is great company. Um, there's why are they all escaping me right now? Earth Beat, Earth Beat Seeds. they make a nice, they have a nice amount of an array of seeds. Um, Harris, as I said, South. I'm trying to think what it's. Oh, Southern Exposure. I think it's called Southern Exposure seeds. I think so. Um, they have a lot of really great variety, especially like vegetables. Um, and yeah, and if it's things that are also, you know, vegetables that are growing for the summer, those are going to be very different than, you know, ones you might want to plant in the fall as well. So, so yeah, um, like Harris's Southern Exposure. I mean, you can definitely message me. I have quite a couple seeds as well. I'm going to be going through. That's actually something I'm thinking I might be making a series. I think I had mentioned it a few classes ago, but I have not only a huge bin of just seeds. It's just like little packets, little Ziploc bags, seed pods. You know, it's a mixed bag, quite literally, of seeds and stuff that I use in teaching. But then I also have a box that's all seeds, like actual seeds to be planted. Um, and so I'm going to be going through both of them. And I might record the process because then it's a good excuse as I kind of go through the box. I can kind of do layer by layer because it's literally bags on top of bags in this really big box. So I can kind of go, all right, let me organize, you know, this top group of seeds, and then I can talk about the seeds, show you what it is, or I collect seed pods too. So I even have pods that students have sent me from different parts of the United States. So I had a previous student who sent me some pods from like their trees in Arizona and, and things like that. So I always welcome that because it's super interesting. And it's some plants that, you know, trees and plants that don't grow here. I also have things like preserved seed snapdragon flower heads. So when they dry out, they look like little skulls, and it looks really interesting. So like things like that. And so I'll be doing that, but I'm going to be going through those seeds, and so I'm happy to share that out. So you know, yeah, especially yeah, a lot of them are organic. So I have like I think I have like different types of beans and I have different types of tomatoes. I know I have different types of tomatoes and different types of beans. Um, so if you're looking like maybe snap peas and things like that, I might have them. So I'm happy to check. Yeah, message me. I'm happy to check and yeah, to pass to share those out. That's yeah. But yeah, and volunteering at a CSA weekly. Yes, I highly recommend. Yeah, CSAs are wonderful. They even started one locally here. And I used to go to one that was in the East Village, and now they started one here in Astoria. So it's wonderful. I really love it. Um, yeah, thank you, Deanna. Thank you for hopping on and joining. Thanks to everyone
Sure.
for hopping on. And I always appreciate it and just yeah, chatting, talking about plants. And yeah, so thank you all so much for hopping on. I hope that the rest of your Monday is wonderful. I hope the rest of your week is wonderful. And yeah, be safe, everyone. And you know, anyone with current transplanting or repotting projects, I'm wishing you all the. Woo, there, even my glasses want to join in. But but you know, sending you guys all the good juju, all the good juju, and you know, hoping that your plants get through it okay. But thank you so much, everyone. And this is always fun. It's a great way to start my week. And yeah, of course, I'm always happy to hang out with everyone. And thank you so much. And yeah, have a great one, everyone.
Thanks, Jocelyn.
You're
Bye.
very welcome. Bye for
Bye.
now.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.